Okay, go ahead and call the, ooh, this is loose. Call the work session to order. We'll start off with a roll call, or I can take attendance here. Counselor, or Mayor McKee, Counselor Schultz, Bottom, Varenkamp, and Nichols are all in attendance. I think John likes it better that way.
It's not my meeting.
If you'd like to now stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You get to use it twice.
Do we normally do
We don't.
No, we don't. I looked at my regular one, but we can do it twice.
okay.
It'll be
That's okay.
extra patriotic.
It's okay.
Today.
I wasn't gonna point of order you on.
If I had to pick one thing to screw up on, that's a good
It's
one.
worth every minute.
Should we do it again?
Yeah. If we want to just jump into, there it is, work session topic on the LPR cameras. And we kind of have a few options. I think the packet itself is kind of designed, maybe Pete and Tim to present first, and then eventually representatives from Flock, and then kind of take it from there in terms of questions and responding and all that. So take it away.
Sure. So this is kind of our presentation on the ALPR cameras of what we've kind of learned over the past 6 months or more. Back in 2023, the council came up with a strategic initiative to look into the possibility of ALPR cameras, or license plate reader cameras. And they reinitiated that in 2024 as something that we should continue to look into. So myself and Sergeant Eckenberg kind of started on that journey. So what we did is we attended a lot of demonstrations, met with departments using ALPRs in the area, kind of found out what they were using, how they were using them, the benefits, the drawbacks, the cost, everything associated with them. I was pretty unfamiliar with those. Where I came from, Mankato, we didn't really have that technology down there. And eventually it was kind of honed down to that we thought Flock was going to be our best vendor to use for the potential of ALPR cameras. We took feedback from community members and prioritized seeking a solution that appropriately integrates safeguards. We didn't want to be out there just willy-nilly running license plates and collecting that data until we had information that we felt comfortable with of retention and the safeguards that would be in place with Flock cameras. So, like I said, we demoed several different camera systems, and we thought the Flock would address those concerns the best.
So then some of the goals that we had was to like create a group of cameras that like we could use to like help us solve crimes, and also expand that there are several neighborhoods, groups of people that also had asked about this to help solve crimes in a smaller area, which is not something that the city wanted to pay for every single camera, but to allow like businesses like the chance to help protect their parking lots and cities and streets, and then also to create a way that we can use that info that is safe, that meets the like statutes, and also like addresses it just so that we are following the rules. Hopefully we can stop. I mean, we could stop some crimes before it occurs, like example is if a stolen vehicle comes here, there's a really good chance that the person is coming here not to buy milk, that they could be coming here to like do something that is bad. So to help like prevent and like to catch those people that are doing things that they shouldn't. And then also just to solve more crimes like efficiently, quicker, because we have more information.
So some of the applications, what we talked about for cameras, such as stolen vehicles, like Pete said, if you're coming into the city of Corcoran with a stolen vehicle, you're not going to grandma's house more than likely. You're here to do something bad. If we get some of those flock cameras out on the edges of town, we can get a first alert that there's a stolen vehicle coming to town. We can then deploy our officers to that area to try to mitigate that stolen vehicle. More than likely, they're not going to stop for us. They're going to take off, but then I would call that a success, right? Get them out of our town. We cover 36 square miles, so if we're up in the northwest corner and we get a stolen vehicle or coming in on, say, Highway 10, Highway 30, we know to get down to our business district and start checking parking lots. Some of the cases that since I've been here are some of the golf course thefts. We know in the summer months, golfers are out for several hours. Cars will come in, they'll steal from the cars, then they'll go use that information that they've gotten, such as credit cards, to fraudulently make charges at other towns. We've had, lately it's not been so bad, but some catalytic converter thefts in the business district. They were coming in stolen vehicles, more than likely U-Hauls.
I know Westside got hit pretty hard like a year ago, and they're pretty
Right.
frustrated by it.
Yep. And it was with a U-Haul, which was reported stolen. So had we known that that was coming into our city, it's pretty easy to spot a U-Haul in the city of Corcoran at midnight. We can all agree probably on that. Last summer we had a stolen vehicle enter Ravinia. I don't know if you remember that one, where some people were coming out from the metro looking to steal more cars out of garages. We've had kind of an uptick in construction site thefts, and it would be nice to be able to have some of that data once a theft occurs or one of these crimes occurs, to use the information from ALPR cameras and to aid to our investigation. So some of the proposed locations that we're talking about, this is a list of them. It might make a little bit more sense on a map, but basically our numbers are somewhat of a priority in our eyes. Is County Road 30 coming in from Maple Grove, County Road 10 coming in from Maple Grove, 116 from the north and from the south, and then on the west side it would be County Road 19 from the north and south, County Road 30, County Road 10, and County Road 50 coming to the east. So those would be kind of the outside edges of our town. We would get a first alert. An officer working would get a ding on their cell phone, the squad cell phone, saying, hey, there's a stolen vehicle westbound from 19 and it's on County Road 50. We would know that then to probably go into the city of Corcoran, to the center of Corcoran, and try to intercept that vehicle.
Can I ask you a question off that?
Sure.
Because you made the comment that you could go looking for the vehicle, but in this example where cameras are, wouldn't it be difficult to find a vehicle if a vehicle per se came in on westbound County Road 30? You've got pretty much the whole city to scour at that point. Wouldn't more cameras then in more areas break it up into a grid and make your job easier?
Absolutely. This is kind of our initial assessment, and as we would potentially grow this system, we would then kind of focus in further in. So then if you did have a stolen vehicle, say it came in on 30 westbound and then turned south on 116, we would get a better idea of the travel of that vehicle.
These 9 kind of address every area, like every major area that cars can come into. To add some into the areas that would aid us during or that would aid us in specialized theft, the downtown area, or to cover certain neighborhoods would be fantastic. The 9 were chosen as the areas that most cars are coming in.
Sure.
So, more is better, but we also were trying to work to protect the city as a whole, like rather than small groups.
Right.
Like so far.
Is there ability to add to the system with mobile cameras that can be mounted on squads or on plow trucks or something to that effect?
And I believe Flock, representative from Flock can answer that better, but at this point, we're just looking at more fixed cameras, but they also do offer mobile or portable cameras. But they wouldn't be affixed on vehicles or plows, but then you could deploy those cameras, say you had a construction site area that's been getting hit regularly, you can deploy those type of cameras a little bit closer into those areas, yes.
And I think some of the hope for this was to be able to engage the private HOAs if there's an interest and the system gets further built out. These would be areas, these first ones would be areas where an HOA wouldn't necessarily be covered by another entity. But, you know, for instance, if Bellwether elected that they wanted them in their neighborhood, the HOA could partner and add onto our network, as could Ravinia or Tavera. And the different neighborhoods could choose to opt into having more specific ones in their area or not. And if the city, I think, the hope was to identify early on where's the greatest value. And, you know, I think initially what was talked about was maybe doing 2 years as a start, possibly using the governor's public safety money. And then getting a 2-year snapshot to see where's the best value that we're getting. Should we move, reduce, add, and kind of reassess from there. But I think this was kind of started as the Flock product is directional, and so this was catching what would be coming into the city rather than leaving something that we could do something about. But I think one of the other top priorities was the privacy and the data access, and that was one of the most clear instructions that this would not be, if there wasn't a legitimate criminal justice reason to have the data, our folks likely won't see that data the way that their system is set up, and that was one of the reasons why this system was, this vendor was brought forward. And I'm guessing you guys will probably get to more of the details on how they do that or how we would manage that both functionally and in policy.
Yeah, something I would talk to that about is our current DVS. When we look up somebody's driver's license data or their license plate in what we call DVS system, that's your driver's vehicle services, we have to enter a case number into that system to reference why we're looking this data up. We can't just say, I'm going to look up Mayor McKee's address because I want to send him a Christmas card. That would be a clear violation of that use of that system, and sanctions would obviously occur. And I would say that our policy will mimic that for when we're accessing ALPR data, is it's for a legitimate criminal investigation, not just for phishing reasons or whatever it may be.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
Would I be able to mount cameras on the roads by my property and have this, if I just wanted to tap into the network?
You could put up cameras, however, you would not be able to see any of the plates that are captured by the city's
Yeah,
cameras.
but
I mean, like the city cameras are separate. You could, like certainly buy 1, 2, 5,
put
like
them
just
on,
for you.
put them on my road, and then
Yeah.
you guys monitor them?
We
Granted that access.
we would get access for it if
So-
it's something you okayed us to have.
Yeah, it would be one of those, well, you'd have to have permission for a city right of way, obviously, but if the city granted permission for those in the right of way, you could allow or not allow Corcoran PD to access if a stolen vehicle went by for us to get alerted. Or if we were investigating a criminal case in there, you could, and I think Flock can get into the technicalities of the system, but in
So-
essence, yes.
So if my alarm went off in my house, I could say, hey, everybody that came down my road has been, it happened, my alarm went off 5 minutes ago. Everyone that came down my road in the last 10 minutes has been
Like, is
cameraed.
Mhm.
Can you pull that, make sure you pull all the people, whoever drove down Trailhaven, because one of them broke into my house. Is
If
that-
they broke into your house, that would be but just for an alarm trigger, okay, that was gonna be but you know, if you had a true burglary where a crime was
Yeah.
committed, we could focus down and use some of that information as an investigative tool. It wouldn't be, we would instantly start calling all 6 people on there. We would use that as part of our investigation of, hey, the neighbor saw a white truck drive down your driveway. I could then access Flock's information, say, tell me the white trucks between midnight and 12:30. And then use that to narrow down my suspects.
But just the license plate alone isn't gonna do any good?
Well, for you, no, like you would just get plates, however, we can like access like what type of vehicles, like it is based off of the plates and.
So you potentially use that
Yes,
as
absolutely.
some sort of, we know 3 people went down Trail Haven between whatever and whatever. And I could just buy the cameras and say, hey guys, I got this camera.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so that's helpful. It's odd. It just seems odd. Even, it might be something I'd want to do, but it seems odd that a private organization could just hook into the net, just buy cameras and hook into the network
To
and
be
have
clear,
it.
we wouldn't even have to, you could do that without us doing this. The council could say tonight, you're not going forward with this, and tomorrow you could buy Flock cameras and put them at your residence. So, that's, an independent party can do that regardless of what the city elects to do, and how they elect to use that data. So, there is, and one of the things that we're trying not to be part of the problem, but is if you park at Ridgedale Mall, there will probably be a handful of private entities, people drive around with ALPRs, collecting data and selling that data. And it's privatized, and there are people that make money selling that data to data distributors and manufacturers, and I would bet you'd be, between your house and going to the mall, you would probably be seen by about 20 different license plate readers, nearly all of them private, probably.
So I could potentially know everybody that went down my road.
I think you would
Know
know,
their
so
plates.
do you want to talk about what data they would be entitled to in this system?
I'm Kristen McLeod. I'm the Community Engagement Manager with Flock Safety. And with private cameras, typically it's an HOA or neighborhood association that would purchase the cameras and then go through permitting processes with the city. And once those are installed, many times they would hand over the administrative portion to local law enforcement. The difference with privately purchased cameras and law enforcement cameras is that law enforcement has an integration in the background where they would be able to tie license plate information to an individual. Flock does not have access to that. Again, it's integrated in the background, and private customers would not have that either.
But I could have the license plate.
The license plate.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other
Thanks. Yeah.
questions while she's up on that, or you want to continue with?
I mean, we can like go back to her during the block portion.
I mean, but that would be no different if you buy your own cameras and stuff them with.
Yeah.
If you bought 20 Ring cameras and stuck them down your road on every fence post you have, you get the same
I don't know
thing.
if I would have that. Can you post a camera and?
I know somebody that
Yeah.
does.
Okay. Fair enough.
Dean?
A lot of this, I don't want to intrude on privacy of people and such. So this works the way I understood it, and everything that was put together and what you guys have done and what I've read on my side is that the license plate notice is immediate related to a stolen vehicle. That's the only thing that's live. Anything else that's needed needs to be a formal request from the police department asking about a specific investigation and asking very specific information related to the information that would be on these cameras. It would not be a live type deal.
Well, there are several things that could trigger a live flag. One is a stolen vehicle. Like another could be any other cars that someone has like issued a list for.
Okay.
Or the estate also has flags for like missing people,
Okay.
like people with warrants.
We get amber alerts, silver
And like
alerts.
amber
So
alerts, silver alerts. So
Those would be immediate type deals,
Yes.
but
And then if it was a case, you'd have to at least have it, the typical way would be you enter the ICR number, the case number. So if
Okay.
it was a missing person, you put in the case number, and that would be referenced back to that case file. And that case file would provide the detail of the basis for what you were searching for.
Gotcha.
And to move even further, maybe you're asking, if I want to see where Dean Barenkamp was yesterday, I would need to write a search warrant, which would need a judicial review and approval before I could access that type of information.
Well, for a
Tracking. For
live
live
tracking
right.
update, we would need a search warrant. But to look where Dean was, if Dean was a suspect in a crime, like we could like go back.
You
and
could
search.
go that deep into something like that.
We,
Okay.
yes, if Dean is a suspect, like in a crime, when the search happened, we would have to explain why the search was done.
And I
Yeah.
think at that point, when that's right at the cusp of when you talk about when it becomes individualized, and then you start looking at, balancing that right to privacy, and it's going to depend a lot on the individual circumstances. I think we can outline that in policy about, if it's anything that remotes, that equates basically to digital tracking, directional or, as opposed, so our state statute says ALPR data is technically usually classified as a point in time in a public space that this vehicle was here. It's not indicative of who was doing what or where. This is, a public snapshot. Where the recent case law in Minnesota, now an entity had used a flock camera to determine directional information from an offender, and it said, the cops knew that they were looking for this person who was suspected of this crime. They used flock to determine that the person was westbound on this county road. The cops went there to find that person and arrested them for the crime. That was determined to be tracking because they were using that to find it. It's a little bit different than saying we had a burglary at a construction site last night, and it happened sometime between midnight and 3 o'clock. Getting a list of the license plates between midnight and 3 o'clock and comparing that with the license plates at a different construction site theft at midnight and 3. There's a distinction between tracking a person or a vehicle at a snapshot in time that might somehow be involved. And I think once we start getting to the point of tracking the movements of a person, then we start getting into the search warrant realm.
And then my last question, how much are we tracked now and how much information is available?
More than we could probably understand.
Your phones track
Okay.
everything about you.
Yep,
Depends how much whoever is looking
yep,
for you wants to find it.
I'm trying to do everything I can to make a good decision here or a good recommendation and stuff, but I always fall back to, they already know most of my habits and stuff. And,
In my last position, Councilmember Bearcat, we
Yeah.
used that data when we had events in order to figure out where are people coming from to come into the community for a large event. What are their, there's all that stuff. It's pretty profound how much
it's
data
a lot
is
of available, isn't there?
You're
Okay.
not talking about traffic cameras.
I'm not in that case. He
Okay.
lifted up his
I
phone
did.
and he said how much is being tracked.
Can I ask a couple of
Yeah,
questions?
please do.
So, if it is not a criminal investigation, and you still access the data, Dean drives away from his house and is reported missing, can you access the data to say, he passed this camera on X date?
If he is going to be someone that I would call as a missing endangered person. So if we have a reason to believe he's a danger to himself or others,
Yeah.
and that that's an exigent circumstance that would be outside of a warrant, that could be a situation. If he would be entered, so we call it entered into NCIC as a missing person.
Okay.
So if I talk to Dean's wife and she says he was really distraught, he was something, and I felt like we should enter him into NCIC as a missing person, that would also integrate with the flock cameras. And after his entry, I could say, all right, well, looks like he's maybe down towards the Orono location. Let's start really looking for Dean to make sure he's okay.
Can other law enforcement entities access the data from our cameras?
The law enforcement agencies that we would allow to. So kind of our initial thought is kind of the ring around Corcoran, such as Rogers, Maple Grove, Plymouth, Medina are all signing up with flock cameras. We can kind of share that information with them in conjunction with, but we could also limit and not say, I don't want any police agencies in Iowa looking at our data.
Okay, so like Brooklyn Park's investigating someone and they believe he's in a car and he's not supposed to be in this area.
That would be, something like that would be something.
That could be something that they would use for a criminal investigation.
But they wouldn't, if we didn't grant them access to Corcoran, if the person drove from Brooklyn Park to Corcoran, then they wouldn't be able to know if they drove
Correct.
to Corcoran.
And there is a great tool that Flock offers. If you've ever been to Wyzetta's website, they have what's called, Flock has what's called a transparency portal. And you can, if agencies that elect to do it, it seems that most in Minnesota don't use it, but I think there's one or two that do. And they show.
I mean,
what
we've got a, like, example as well, chief, we could put up there.
Oh, great. They can show what agencies you're sharing with or you've elected to share with.
One difference, Dean, I think that's worth pointing out is this isn't the government.
Oh, I know, yeah.
This is private, so it's
We-
not like walls can look and see what's going on. It's,
Could we put him on the exclusion list?
Out of this
Put him
meeting,
on the
all I'm
exclusion
getting
list
is I need an
specifically.
escort for everywhere I go and whatever I do now because I'm extremely questionable and endangered. So, I'm just kidding. I hope not.
So then with the, I mean, with the portal, this is something that Flock had that I thought was a really good feature. We can show everybody this, I mean, this info, which it'll show the amount of time it's saved for. There's a list of like external places that they are sharing with. It says what it can be used for, like the access policy, it shows multiple policies. I believe this one also shows the amount of scans it said it does, and is a very good, it is showing what it is doing.
And is that provided with just getting the system, or is that an additional
Yeah.
service?
So you can
No,
see
it's the
Wyzetta's 10 cameras have had 1,311 hot list hits in the last 30 days. So those might be, those are immediate notifications of, for instance, a stolen vehicle or stolen plates, or it could be a driver who's canceled IPS or revoked, or there's a warrant. So again, you have to make the same verifications. If you come upon that vehicle and the registered owner is a male with a warrant, but you see a female driving it, you're not going to stop that vehicle. In the same way as if the officer ran that plate from their squad car, it appeared that the registered owner had a warrant and it didn't match. So it, in essence, does the same function as the officer running the license plate from their squad car. But this is a sample of what Wyzetta has seen from their camera locations.
It seems like a lot. It's like 1% of the detections they have.
doesn't it?
Not quite 1%, but
One more question. Wouldn't these read both directions? Even though they may be pointed
So.
one
so,
direction, wouldn't they still see the vehicles coming at them?
Yeah, I mean, she can talk more about that. However, like the focus, the focus of the camera is towards the back plate of one way. However, like the camera could like capture the front plate of a like oncoming car, except for it is not very it is occasional because of the
Okay.
like headlights, because there
Got
are
it.
a lot of plates that don't have like front plates, like because of the speed, because of
Okay.
and like many different things. However, I believe she can like correct me with the numbers, but I believe the rear plates is something like 98%. The front plates was like 50%. So, so it could. However, that is not what its main purpose would be. So.
And I understand that. I think one of the other reasons was for the back of the vehicles was that you're not capturing driver info. So it kind of takes the human element of, or any implicit or explicit bias from a reviewer of the image. So I think you can get good images of the back of the vehicle, because you can also, you don't need to search by plate. If you know it was a white pickup truck that was involved in a theft, you can search white pickup trucks. And if it had a bumper sticker, you can say a white pickup truck with a bumper sticker. And it will limit you from getting, in many ways, from getting superfluous data.
So vehicles pulling a trailer, you would hone in on the style of trailer or whatever? If they stole a construction trailer, let's say it doesn't have a plate.
Correct. Yeah, so we utilize machine learning, and it takes we position the pole so that it optimally captures the rear of the vehicle. The machine learning takes the attributes of the vehicle and then will categorize it into a filterable search. And so items like a roof rack or a bumper sticker can be searched for. I will say that specifically with a bumper sticker, that is all that you can filter for. You can't specifically filter for a type of bumper sticker. That level of detail is not available. It's just a bumper sticker, a roof rack. In the event that there's a paper plate that can't be captured or there isn't a plate, again, they can utilize those vehicles' features to be able to search for that vehicle specifically.
Interesting. And how is it at night? Is it infrared driven? Is that what it is?
I don't know technology specifically, but the images captured at night are incredibly clear, and we've made, gosh, just even a year ago, leaps and bounds to be able to provide really great clarity at night.
What is the distance of the picture? I mean, I'm assuming you can zoom in, but how far out can you take that picture?
Oh, I can get you those metrics. It's not coming to me at the top of my head, but at pretty high rates of speed, even we can capture the rear of a vehicle, and they're motion activated. So,
Snow and rain, how does that work?
yep, snow and rain. We're winterized. Our cameras operate very well in very, very cold climates, and again, the picture clarity is very good.
If you could get some of that data and follow up with our staff, that would be great. 'Cause I think
Absolutely.
whenever we are looking at this down the road, would be important information to have. Thank you.
I gotta get them.
One of the numbers was the cost of lease and the cost of installation, but how are these cameras powered and how is that? Do you have any idea of what a cost of that would be?
They are solar powered, and again, they do operate we're in parts of the country that very rarely see sun, and they operate just fine. And the cost is $3,000 per camera per year, and then there is one-time installation fees, and then depending upon the type of pole that's needed, I'm not sure if you all might have the
Yeah,
specifics.
the flock pole costs $650, I think is what we were quoted. If it attaches to a current pole, it's a less charge than that. I want to say it was $150. The flock poles have been approved to be along county roads, like Hennepin County roads. That's a recent thing. And the spots that we have we have picked out right now don't have any power. If we are able to switch to power at some point, we could. However, the solar options are used across the cities around us, and seems to be working very well, they said. So there are some areas like Highway 12, I believe they had to add power because of the amount of cars that were being scanned, because they have a lot of traffic compared to most roads here. But that is something that we can work on with them if there's a need to switch to power. However, solar will be the initial initial setup.
I think the lease program is also, we're not adding infrastructure that then is going to, if technology changes so quickly that as it ages, we're not having to buy a new one in 5 years. Our body cameras are going to come up for replacement. We need to buy new ones. With it being a lease, it is kind of they take care of it, they manage it, they replace it, and we're looking at the backside of it. So there is no additional cost for software, there's no server maintenance, there's no, we don't have a lot of IT bandwidth here. So this approach also seems to fit with basically our city's strengths and weaknesses, I think.
As a leased camera,
And you mentioned that they do the maintenance and replacement. If a camera goes down, what's the time frame to replace the camera? And do you do testing for the camera to make sure it's transmitting information?
It's a great question. So we actively monitor the camera's health, and we call it the Insights dashboard. So your administrators of the system have access to looking at camera's health as well. But when we see that there is an issue with the camera, we'll respond. I want to say it's typically within 48 hours to diagnose what is happening, and then dependent upon what the issue is, then that would dictate how long it would take, of course, to get it back up and running. But I do know it's fairly quickly, and again, we're proactive in monitoring your camera's health.
Did you guys have one?
Yep. Yeah, the next slide. So like talking to like neighboring cities, we kind of asked for stories that Flock like helped out a lot, and these are kind of the two that they told us about. There was a bird that happened, and they were able to give them a list of cars that were driving away from it because the city had some cameras that were right by where the car was said to drive from. I'm told that it was very helpful with the like investigation. These are recent ones, so there's not any closure on them because things go a little bit slow. But there's a stolen trailer that was found because of it, and it sounds like after they were able to ID the suspects, it led to many other crimes that were done by the same people when they went to their homes, when they went and found the trailer. They found many other things that were stolen. One thing that's not on this slide, for a story that is nearby Plymouth, like helped us out, I guess. There were some bags that were being thrown out of cars that contained.
They solved that?
They did.
So
Huh?
Done.
Yeah.
Plymouth Booker.
So there's a person that was throwing out bags of stuff throughout the area. Plymouth came up with the idea. They got portable cameras. They cleaned off a section of roadway. They then put up the flat camera, and they logged the plates that drove by during the time frame between the clean road and the soiled road. And they did that several times, it sounds like, and like throughout that they found that there was one vehicle that was there every time, so they went and talked to that person, and it sounds like they've got a confession from them and everything else. So that's a success story as well. So, I mean, kind of a funny one, like not a huge crime, but it is definitely something that'll help out a lot of people. So.
Can I ask a question? If someone comes into, or how long are somebody drives by one of our cameras, how long are the license plates in the system for?
30 days.
30 days.
Correct. The state statute says that they can be in there for a max of 60 days. Again, like one of the reasons that we thought Flock was the best system is that they do smaller than what the statute allows. It's just the 30 days.
So if someone comes in here, well, none of our cameras point out, so they all point in. So if someone came in here and committed a crime and then left the town, we wouldn't be able to. Would we go and take we know a crime happened at 6? Would we get all the camera footage from like 5 45 to 6?
No, so we have had several cases where, because of different cameras, because of different information, like where there's a person that'll say that there's a red car that was at the scene. Like, we could search for any red cars that had come in, and then that would be a tool to help locate the people, or like to look at people that might be involved with it. So it wouldn't place that car at that place, however, it would help us identify it more. Tim might have some more info.
Like I said, it's a part of a tool. So we get video from a private business, we'll just say Napa, that shows it's a white truck backed up, and we have a timestamp on there, but the video cameras aren't good enough at Napa to show a plate or a better description. We can then narrow Flock's searches down to get a better idea of what that vehicle could be and possibly a plate to aid us in an investigation. It's not a sole tool that we're going to use, but it's one in our tool belt. I mean, just like a tool belt, you have all kinds of different tools for the specific job. This is just a part of that tool belt.
So I'm driving around in Corcoran, and I know that for 60 or 30 days, someone knows that I've come into Corcoran in the last 30 days, basically, because they store
Someone
the data.
could know.
Yeah.
If they knew what to search, if they knew that they were looking for your vehicle and
Yeah.
then you came in on one of those roadways. Now, finding, you know, as you mentioned, somebody committing a crime and leaving, by participating in the network, if we elected to share with our neighboring agencies, if we knew what that vehicle was, we would potentially have access to look for that vehicle in the surrounding camera networks. It kind of lets you know if other agencies were to position theirs similarly to ours, we would have an idea of saying, hey, this vehicle just went into Medina, or this vehicle is, you know, somewhere nearby.
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to make you aware that it's 6:13 and we're on slide 10 of 31. So I don't know if there's more information that you want to get into, but there's a lot more information in the packet.
Okay, let's, any other pressing questions right now?
Mine can wait.
Okay, let's power through, and there will be more discussions on this, I think, if we're looking to go forward, there'll be more meetings, so. Right ahead.
We can keep going.
All right, so again, Flock is growing around here. Like, speaking to agencies, this is the system most are going to, like Rogers, like just like recently, like Maple Grove, Plymouth, Medina, like West Hennepin. And again, if we are connected with them, we can use their cameras. So if there's cars going into theirs, we do have a video, but if we're short on time, we can skip that. This is the YouTube video of a person that is talking about a HOA that like put up cameras that the police were able to use that information to really help crime there. So that's a very quick summary of it, but that's available on the YouTube. So again, we've been using Flock as the general term. Like, we chose them because of the lease cameras, because they will like set up and like maintain the cameras. They also have a system to where in like neighborhoods can buy the cameras that we can then access. Because of the alerts, it can integrate with the other cities. It's a very secure system, and the one thing that is really important is that they don't sell any of the information. So there are other groups out there that have a private network of cameras that do sell information. Flock is not one of them. So that was a very important thing that we focused on. So we can kind of turn it over to Flock. I know that she's like talked a couple times, and then she's got a slideshow to go over her.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here when there's no ice, there's snow happening.
We're trying to bring your slides
Oh,
up
no
quick. The
problem.
video locked us up. So, little technical difficulty. So they do have the slides in the back in front of them.
Oh, okay. Is there an
Yeah, you can-
Thank you so much. So to start, just a little bit more about Flock. Our mission is to eliminate crime and to shape a safer future together. Flock was founded in 2017 after our CEO, Garrett Langley, was the victim of property crime, and his neighborhood also experienced an uptick of crime. And he went to law enforcement with some personal video footage from his doorbell and said, hey, what can we do to make this, to stop this from happening in the neighborhood? And law enforcement said apologetically, this isn't enough. We need more information. We can't really go off of this footage to pursue an investigation. So a bit more digging, Garrett found that law enforcement could really utilize license plate numbers and vehicle descriptions. Over 70% of crimes are committed in conjunction with a vehicle. So an engineer by trade, he got to researching, he found that LPR has been around since the 70s, that legacy companies, the hardware and equipment was really expensive, so it rendered it very inaccessible to many communities. And then also, as Detective and Sergeant has mentioned, that legacy companies often sold data to third parties. And so Garrett created Flock to really provide an efficient, ethical, and good tool for law enforcement. So we know that law enforcement, their resources are stretched thin across the nation, and we believe that our technology can really act as a force multiplier, providing them information and a searchable database to be able to really try to find a needle in a haystack and get them alerts to wanted vehicles within 20 seconds. So how does the technology work? You'll see the photo that is in this slide is an image of the rear of the vehicle, as I kind of touched upon earlier, and it captures all of those attributes. We talked about how this Flock is very intentionally infrastructure free for you all, so you can focus on doing city business, law enforcement can focus on doing their work, and we take care of the camera health, the maintenance, and any software upgrades and camera upgrades that come about. So it's license plate recognition, and it's used to solve crime. It adheres to all state laws. What it is not facial recognition. So in the event that someone is inadvertently captured in one of the still images of the vehicle, there is no way to search for a person in our system. And there's no facial recognition technology tied to our system whatsoever. It is not tied to personal identifiable information. It is just capturing those license plate numbers. And as I mentioned before, law enforcement has the integrations of NCIC information, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and that's where law enforcement can access information to then tie a suspect to that vehicle or license plate number. The data is not stored beyond 30 days, and it is hard deleted at the 30-day mark, and it is not retrievable. It's proactive, investigative, and it acts as a deterrent. Yes?
Can I, a quick question on this one? So
Sure.
with data not stored beyond 30 days, does that also mean that it's not sold to anyone else who would retain it beyond the 30 days?
Correct. Flock will never sell or share your data, period. And so how to mitigate risk and how do we protect your community members' privacy? The footage is 100% owned by your city, by the department. And we talked about the ability to, your department is in full control of who they're sharing the data with. And again, Flock will never sell or share that data.
Wait, They have to share it with our law enforcement.
Who would
That's who they control it, right?
Yeah.
Our police
What was your
department.
question?
are you talking?
She's saying we'd never share your data,
No.
but they share it
Well,
with you.
It's our data.
It's ours.
so-
Right, it's, yes, Flock does not own any of the data. So we will not sell it or share it.
You just maintain it on your server.
Correct. We act as a guardian of that information until law enforcement accesses it as part of a criminal investigation.
So if the FBI came to you and said, we want your data, you would say, go fly a kite, we don't have any data?
We would say you need to contact Corcoran PD for that information. We would never sell it or share it with FBI. Unless compelled under a court order, then we would have to comply with a court order. But outside of that, we will not share that information. So all of our data is stored securely in the AWS cloud and is encrypted end to end. It is not used for traffic enforcement. We have no red light camera capability. We talked a little bit about, next slide.
Next one, you said?
Yes, please. The Transparency and Insights portal. So you saw an example of that a little bit earlier. It's customizable for each agency. And again, this is coming directly from Flock, and it's a public-facing dashboard that can be linked to your city's website and shares, again, important information about how many searches are conducted, who the information your department is sharing with, and LPR policy. The Insights dashboard I mentioned briefly before provides your administrators of the system a way to measure crime patterns, taking a look at return on investment, the audit search history. So anytime one of your officers is accessing the system, they will have to input a search reason, and that then creates an audit platform so that your administration can monitor who is accessing the system and for what reason. And then also included in the Insights dashboard is your camera health. Next slide, please. Thank you. And next slide. So this is a list of agencies in Minnesota that are currently utilizing Flock. Next slide. And these are just some case studies with success of, I won't, for time's sake, get into them, but we have had a great impact in solving crime locally. And in addition to solving crime, as has been mentioned, we've really been pleasantly surprised in the impact we've had in recovering children who have been abducted and also missing vulnerable adults. And that should conclude my portion of the presentation.
Thank you. Any questions, additional questions for us?
Can I ask a question about maintenance then? Do you have a facility in the metro area that you dispatch maintenance people from?
So we do have technicians that are local.
Okay.
So the things that jumped out to me are the relatively high percentage of hits. 0.5% to 0.8% seems like a lot. What fraction of those result in pursuit typically? Do we know how much that would impact the day-to-day activity of the police force?
I think a lot of those hits too could be for something as simple as a misdemeanor traffic warrant, not necessarily a stolen vehicle. So there's, I think just the percentage of stolen vehicles could vary city by city. So out of those hits, that could be of a revoked driver, a warrant for someone's arrest, a missing person, anything to those effects. Now, a pursuit, I mean, that's going to fall back on our pursuit policy as well. Mm-hmm. You know, do we pursue at a certain amount of time or at a certain day of time for a certain crime? You know, if it's just a stolen vehicle and it's at noon, absolutely, I would say we're not going to pursue that. So, just those vehicles, or just the hits that they showed on that one dashboard, doesn't necessarily mean that those vehicles are stolen.
Okay, that's helpful. I think that might be something we'll want to investigate if we decide to go forward, just making sure that we're all comfortable with that pursuit policy. One of the primary concerns I have would come from the effectiveness of the system. So if we're successful in detecting the people that we should be detecting and being able to interdict them before they can commit a crime, that may be a drastic shift in the workload of the typical officer. And I think one of the values that we've tried to enshrine in the community is respect for the law enforcement group that we have and reciprocal support from the law enforcement community to the residents. And if they are suddenly dealing with a lot more negative interactions, I'll say, euphemistically, will they be able to maintain that same attitude and disposition?
And speaking to some of the other agencies, it was an adjustment for the officers to recognize that they're not going to catch all of those hits that go through. Getting used to saying, yep, there was a revoked driver that went through, but I was busy on this domestic or whatever else. So not all of those even necessarily result in law enforcement investigation. So if an officer is well out of position and it's a low-level offense, it might be, this car went by, this driver was revoked, but I have more important things going on. But if that's a stolen vehicle, they may prioritize that over the other item that they're working on. Talking to the agencies, anecdotally, they haven't had a huge uptick in pursuits, but they were shocked by the number of hits as well that came through, that they said they had no idea that they would see 1,000 cars this month that had actually that level of violations.
Thank you.
Anything else?
What page are we on?
So she's done
She's
with
done.
the presentation, right? Yeah.
We're
So
done.
we're kind of done with the presentations and now just on the thinking about and discussion part. Do you have anything you want to bring up?
We're not, now we can talk about it?
Now we can talk
Yeah.
about it.
What's the next, what are we after here?
I think it's mostly educational. We've gotten most of that, and then just trying to get out any questions we might have so we can have a full picture. And then I would foresee this that we probably, I would advocate that we, after this, go home. There's a few things I kind of want to dig into some more, and then we'd bring it back potentially at a future council meeting to have a discussion, and potentially be multiple council meetings to vote on either implementing it or purchasing and implementing it or not.
Were you able to get do you have a sample contract?
I wasn't.
So we have sample contracts, but we have not vetted any with legal yet, so we weren't gonna provide a contract that wouldn't be actually be a proposal. And I think there's also elements of knowing what level of engagement we would have with them would be probably necessary for the contract language.
So
Do you know if you could get us some sample language that you have done with other cities, potentially the ones in our area?
Absolutely.
That would be great.
And I know our legal team is more than willing to have conversations with the cities
Great.
as well to go through it.
Great.
So there was a contract that was sent to us via email this week that said something to the effect of that they do not share data unless they were compelled to share data for a really good reason, or some, that wasn't the official language, but it read as though you had some discretion in actually sharing the data. That's why I asked that question. When you say we don't share data, period, we saw a sample of a contract where it said in very unclear language about circumstances where you would share data.
So what I believe the portion of the contract you're referring to is what Flock is when we're taking feedback from customers, say, like for example, Rivian, there's a new model of car, a new brand of car in the market that our machines, our cameras aren't able to detect. So it's taking that feedback from customer data, totally anonymizing it and washing it, and we wouldn't even know that it would come from Corcoran, and so that we can take that and then train our cameras to capture that rear of the vehicle accurately. But again, I'll reiterate that we will never sell or share your data, and that is also very clear in the contract. And again, we're happy to have our legal discuss with the cities council to make sure that that's something that you're comfortable with and understand.
So then the data of, so then I would ask the city, suppose the Hennepin County or the FBI or whomever, the Met Council said, hey, we would like to see your traffic camera data. We'll take the batch. And would you have the authority to say, no, we're not giving that to you? We have the data.
We would only be compelled if there was a court order that they knew that it was there and that so for instance, if Hennepin County knew that we had it, they would have to get a search warrant to obtain it or a court order. But typically they only have a 30-day window to identify that we have it and that they want it and to get the court order to compel us to comply with it. So they would have to accomplish all of those things within a short period of time, and we would only provide it pursuant. There's a distinction between working with another law enforcement agency that's trying to solve a crime and the Met Council wanting to
Well, they have
track their
Met Council as their transit police.
transit police. Yeah.
Yeah. So like once the data is gathered, if someone wanted to access it, they could.
They would have to, through legal
They could.
process, yes.
Yeah, of
And it would be our data that they would be
Yeah.
accessing.
But they'd have to do it within that 30 days or it's gone.
Right.
And then, yeah. So we have 10 minutes. Are we going to talk about it, or what? Are we just going to
Yeah.
meeting over? or
Mayor and
what?
council, if I could make a recommendation on a way to potentially deal with it, is as we were looking at the calendar, right now, April 11th doesn't have a pretty heavy agenda. So one option might be to direct staff continuing to communicate to provide some of the information you've requested between now and then us putting it on the agenda to discuss again on April 11th. Unless you have another, but just trying to frame it so that it's not ambiguous about when you want staff to come back with it. Potentially sooner if you want it sooner. We have meetings on the 28th and the 14th as well, but currently it's a light agenda on the 11th. And then how you wanted us to frame that, to bring that to you, that might be a helpful discussion too.
And I think the feedback we were looking for was specifically on to continue looking into this, guidance on number of cameras and locations. Would it be the 9 locations plus 1 or 2 portables? Would it be start with 1, start with 2? So I guess the size and scope of the project, but also as we begin drafting policies saying, this is the policy direction, I did like this, didn't like that. And also considerations for legal once they start reviewing the draft contract. So really trying to get direction on what you would like to see at the next meeting.
Can I?
Go for it.
So I will just say I don't believe in the benevolency of government, and there are hundreds and hundreds of cases every year of supposedly private data becoming public data. And I also think that you should be able to travel unmolested or unbothered or privately. This feels like a humongous intrusion into your own private travel. But I've lost 4-1 votes on this, but since we're meeting about it, I think this is a bad idea.
Okay.
And I don't like the fact that all those other entities, that offers no weight to me as to whether or not we should have every single person who comes into our town identified and stored for 30 days, praying that nobody wants the data, or that, that.
So that would be your biggest concern, is if like a larger.
My biggest concern is just the collection of private citizens' traffic.
Okay.
Like, to me, it's not a good reason to collect every single human that comes into Corcoran's traffic, so the crime rate can be lower. You could make the justification of everybody has to stay at their house, so the crime rate could be lower. No one can travel. We want the crime rate to be lower. That's what they do in China. So it might help crime, but I think it's an overstep.
Okay.
Can I tell you one thing about, every time you travel anywhere in the metro, you're on some traffic cam.
Yeah, but I didn't vote for that traffic cam.
No, but
I'm not voting for this.
you can access that information.
Yeah, I get it.
I've accessed that information twice for auto accidents, and they've gone back
Sure.
months and give me data that enabled me to go in and actually get license plates. Just as much information as you're getting here.
Yeah, sure.
It's just not aided in the solving of a crime. So I get what you're saying, but I think that privacy's gone out the window years ago. And it's just a matter of, do we want to be able to access and protect the citizens in this city a little bit more?
I think you've got a good point there. That steak is already cooked
Well,
to a large degree. And there's certainly value in making sure that we don't contribute to rights being violated, but the collection of data in state statute has been found to be constitutional. So to me, we have to weigh the incremental value to public safety to collect a little bit of additional data to what's already being collected, and is that worth the expense to the city? And it feels like it probably is. I still want legal to fully vet the contract and make sure that it really does adhere to state statute requirements. And if we're confident in that, I feel like it would be a wise investment.
Yeah, I'd like to see that contract as well and work with John on that.
I did have
And
a
do-
couple other things I wanted to ask to have
Go for it.
included in the April meeting. I think it would be helpful to understand, part of the benefit calculation is how well are we able to detect suspect vehicles throughout the community. So the edge detection that we have gives you an alert that something is here. We mentioned, or there was discussion about how if different HOAs would be interested in mounting cameras that they would fund, that might make the network more valuable. So I might see some value in reaching out to the HOA groups that we already have in the city and see if they would want to do this at some point. That helps us determine what the overall value proposition would be. I would also be interested in understanding, is there value in having these within squads as well, to give you a mobile detection that's, linked directly to where that officer is at that time? Because that might be another thing to expand the proposal to include, if we feel like there's a lot of additional value to having it on 3 of the squads.
That would be a different platform, but we can certainly find that information.
This is just a minor thing that I'd like included. Were you done?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah. Whenever it's coming back, just if we could have a better breakdown of, if we were to proceed with getting these, installing them, get like an exact cost if we 3,009 cameras, and then try to get a sense of what type of pole we need for each, and so we at least have a ballpark of what that actual cost would look like. And then it would be annually, I guess, just the 9, if we did 9 cameras times the 3,000.
So like each individual site, so site 1 would cost this much, maybe
Yeah,
site
just to get
2
a
would
sense
have a
of,
full
like, are we
existing-
talking about the $650 pole for all 9, or
Okay.
just for 2?
So
So
very
the total
specific
budget
site
for
locations.
implementation and then the
Yeah.
long-term budget for sustainment?
Yep, I think that would be good in addition to the contract stuff that we've talked about.
On the cost side, Matt, you had mentioned something about the governor's fund to fund this, not even coming out of our pocket.
So we received one-time funding in December of last year, public safety
Okay.
funding from the state government. We'll be bringing forward a plan here in the coming months as far as where our staff recommendation for earmarking those funds, but there is, the city did receive an allocation. So I think what the recommendation from staff would be is to use that potentially as seed money for the first 2 years. I think in talking with Flock, with agencies, they've been willing to do kind of a 2-year agreement to start up, to assess the value using the state dollars that we received from them. At some point, we would have to roll in to the city budget and sustain that with with city dollars, but I think it would be a way to fund an initial startup to assess the value and.
So then, not to open a can of worms and stuff, but could the funding of this after that initial deal, if we voted yes, and if we continue, could that be funded by violations currently given out by our police officers, those kind of things? I think you know what I'm saying, maybe not?
Yeah, typically, no, you're never going to, we're not gonna police for profit, we police for.
Yeah, I don't want to do that either. Is there a way to do it that,
Did they change the law on that anyways?
Did
as
they?
to how much revenue
Okay.
a town could come in?
I won't even open the can of worms
Yeah.
and I'll throw the worms
No.
back in the can.
Can't-
Thank
It's not
you.
like Dukes of Hazzard anymore where you hide behind a sign.
Roscoe P. Coltrane.
I think the Dukes hit my mailbox the other night and just wasted.
So gentlemen, if I could, just to clarify, your guidance to staff is that we'll bring it back as an agenda item on April 11th. The 3 questions for certain are, how well are we able to detect suspect vehicles? Can it link into future squads? And then a better breakdown on the implication of the budget. Between now and then, you'd like to see the contract or an example of a contract. Is there anything else that you'd like to make sure that we include? Besides, Chief's also mentioned breakdown of the cameras and locations and potentially exploring some draft policies. And that would be a great opportunity. I know that there's some people in the public that want to provide some feedback on this. That will be a great opportunity for them to
When
provide
is
their-
that?
So that's
April 11th.
2 things I wanted to make sure is, there's 2 people in the room that I know would like to weigh in on this. Does that date work for you guys? Do you think? I know it's kind of a little ways out.
I'll have to double check and get back. May I ask for a bit of information to be included? I know I'm
Sure.
completely not, it's not my,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
I just feel like we've been given some success stories, and I would like some more hard data. If it's gonna be a benefit that this is a reduction to crime, I think overall, we wanna see what is the long-term data, not 1 month of hits, but like long-term, how long have they had it, and how many prosecutions did it lead to? Right now, we're struggling to get prosecutions, so is this really gonna provide a benefit for the amount of invasion of privacy, I feel like? And then the other thing is overall the success stories. How many of the total scans was that? Like if you percentage-wise, because I think it's really easy to look at few statistics and look at them one particular way and it paints one story. And I'm just wondering if we could get a balanced perspective. And I know that's completely not my ask, so I'd just be really grateful if you included it, but I know it's not a requirement.
I'll ask for those things, but I'll add one additional. I'm not necessarily as interested in prosecution number as I am in crime rate. So the actual destruction of property, theft, whatever. If those are dropping, even without prosecution happening, I would still call that a win.
I would agree, especially because that's something that can change, who's managing that office and.
I think it's hard to, some cities, for example, that participate have 2 cameras, and it's hard to say, whether that's, how do you articulate what is success? Is it a success if they stop a person with stolen license plates? Is that a success, or is it a revoked driver? And I think that's the hard part of saying, well, how many scams were success stories? How many of them were even investigated? Of that 1,100, there might have been 150 that an officer actually went to try and seek that out. And what of those would be considered a success? I mean, a lot of that is a little bit
I
squishy.
appreciate the complexity. I just feel like it's being sold as a benefit, and so maybe if it's not easy to get the direct, statistic or you drill down that far, but maybe just a little bit of a broader view.
So what I hear you saying, Councilmember Nichols, is that we are wanting to get some more data instead of these few vignettes and potentially some outcomes that maybe it results in. So we'll explore that. One of the things that I do want to emphasize as they talked about this is this being funded by the grant. It's a great opportunity to kick the tires on it. And if it were a pilot program that the city then didn't think the juice was worth the squeeze, we can step away from it after 2 years. And so I just wanted to bring that up. Like this could be an opportunity to explore, is this truly a benefit the way that we thought? And if we find it, then we double down and we continue to invest in it in ways. If we find that it's not, it didn't cost the city anything in dollars, and we've learned some valuable lessons and potentially had some impact.
Yeah, well said. And with the renting option potentially gives us flexibility of, oh, we're not getting anything useful from these areas. Maybe these areas would be-
Relocate.
or maybe
Yeah,
just
redistribute.
less cameras, or maybe it's more cameras, or whatever it is. It gives us flexibility, which is nice.
It's a good entry point to figure out, is this a good long-term solution? Did we overkill with 9? Did we undersell? Because some have only gone with 2. Some have gone with a lot more than 9.
Yeah, I think as we're looking for examples for that data set, finding similar types of cities with similar numbers of cameras is probably the fairest comparison.
Similarities, great.
Yeah.
I think staff's got clear guidance for that April 11th, and we'll work to get the contract.
If you had mobile cameras, would we have to establish a policy of how mobile cameras are deployed? I'm assuming we have like a policy even with like the speed readers that we put out.
Could you see if there's any cities that do have the mobile cameras, if we could see some example
So
policies on
by
that?
mobile cameras, you're talking about on the squad cars as opposed to movable stationary, or?
No, movable stationary, ones on
Stationary.
trailers.
Yeah, we would outline that, if we could outline that in the policy as well.
Yeah.
The same operation.
Only other policy thing real quick before we end is I do see in a couple cities policies, they have the 60-day mark instead of the 30-day mark for data retention. I would say we should stick to that 30-day that's been discussed if we were to proceed. Unless,
Can we let him speak since she spoke?
yeah.
I am available on April 11th, and I think that there's one additional piece of information that I think Commissioner Nichols should inquire about. And I'd be curious to hear your response, but I know that there have been multiple lawsuits filed against Block because of the lack of accuracy of your cameras, where innocent people are being identified as falsely identified as being driving a stolen vehicle when it wasn't stolen. So I guess I would be curious to see information about the accuracy of the cameras as well as these lawsuits that are currently pending, because I don't want to see this city sued because your cameras are.
And I think that comes with the data you talked about and kind of brought up a couple times with the quality and accuracy specs of the camera that we'd like to see. And then maybe that's a conversation that we'd like you to touch on, and I'd like to have with you at some point in between, kind of digging into some of that stuff.
Yeah, I'll ask for the accuracy info too.
Okay,
That was
understood.
concern.
We probably can't get comments on active cases though.
Excuse me.
If she's in a pending lawsuit, I wouldn't expect her to provide.
She probably can't, but we can probably look stuff up about it.
Yeah, you can look whatever's up in public record.
Yeah.
And I would direct, if John hasn't seen your letter, I would direct John to view it,
Believe it has.
the letter.
Oh, Mark,
Yeah.
yes, I have.
Okay.
We get a quick break in?
Yes, we will adjourn here.
Good work, you
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. And
Good
I
job.
move to adjourn.
Second.
thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.